Steven Universe and all associated images are property of Cartoon Network, Rebecca Sugar, and any and all other respective owners. I don't know them all. All footage in this video has been used for the purpose of critique parody under fair use. Please support the official release. So hey, remember that really cringy bad video that I made like forever ago that supposed that Lapis was half of Blue Diamond? Good times. In all seriousness though, I do regret that video just a little bit. In my haste to give my opinion on an idea that is absolutely ridiculous in hindsight, I crafted a video that didn't use nearly as many of my own ideas as I usually try to include, and that was the video that kicked off my 3-part conspiracy series. And while I still think that the ideas that I presented in the other 2 videos in that series, the Rose Conspiracy and the Garnet Conspiracy, will end up being at least generally true, the absurdity and pure cringe factor of that Lapis video really hurts the credibility of the whole series. All of that said though, there are still a couple of ideas in that Lapis video that I can't dismiss as easily as the others. And no, neither of those ideas is the idea that Blue Diamond is a fusion, that's preposterous, or the idea that Lapis was a super important gem in the hierarchy of Homeworld. That is equally as preposterous. No, the ideas that I'm talking about are the idea that Lapis has some sort of yet unrevealed history with Rose, and the observation that Lapis seems to know more about humans and human culture than a gem with only passing experience with the Earth logically would. Remember, at the time of making that video, we really only knew about Lapis from Mirror Gem and Ocean Gem. Back then, I thought it was really odd that Lapis picked up on what Steven was going for with his fart jokes as quickly as she did. I found it odd that she was familiar with the idea of humor based on bodily functions at all. That she was so sure that she had correctly identified Steven as a human that she questioned whether or not he was actually a crystal gem when he told her he was. And that, in Ocean Gem, when fighting Steven and Connie, Lapis knew that cutting off their air supply would incapacitate them. While it's not impossible that a gem would understand enough about human anatomy to know that, most gems don't seem concerned with humans at all. And the Pyramid Temple with its test chambers, the only indication that Homeworld ever developed a curiosity about the workings of human beings, comes from later in the war. So it does seem that Lapis, at the very least, has some knowledge of human anatomy. And yet she claimed in the same old world that she came to Earth only intending to be here for a short time, and that it was before that short time was up that she was caught in the start of the war. She kind of glosses over this whole period and makes no indication that she ever even saw a human. So what gives? Is Lapis keeping something from Steven and, by extension, from us? Well, for a while I didn't really think so. I made the logical assumption that the crew just hadn't really worked out the details of Lapis's backstory back in Mirror Gem and Ocean Gem, and that her odd knowledge of humans was just a gag that probably shouldn't have been included as it didn't really respect the lore. But as I was watching the episode Gem Harvest, listening to Lapis's dialogue in that episode, I came to the realization that that characterization might not only be correct, but consistent. Lapis, despite having far less experience with humans, at least as far as we've seen, than any of the crystal gems, including Peridot, is active in trying to make Andy more comfortable by surrounding him with human stuff. She's still comically incorrect about the context of some of the cultural imagery that she's invoking, but at least she tries, at least as much as Pearl tries. And let's be entirely clear about this, I can't actually tell if she doesn't know the cultural context of the things that she's talking about, or if she's just being sardonic. She has the kind of tone and personality that makes it hard to tell. And later in the episode, when Peridot says, offhand, that by right, the crystal gems should be allowed to take what they want from mankind as a reward for saving them, Lapis makes the joke that they should at least get a discount. It makes literally no sense for Homeworld to have any form of capitalism. So unless Lapis has some experience with currency-based economics that we haven't seen, she shouldn't know what discount means in this context at all. Just like it shouldn't have been so easy for her to pick up on the context of Steven's fart joke back in Mirror Gem. Is this just another example of a joke that was made in spite of the lore? Well, I mean, it could be. That's not entirely impossible. But the crew is usually really good about making the characters humorous while keeping them in character. Typically speaking, if a character doesn't have knowledge of something, they don't display knowledge of it ever, even in joke form. And if a mistake is made, it tends not to persist from episode to episode. And yet this trait of Lapis's is persistent. The only recurring gem character who correctly references human cultural stuff more often than Lapis is probably Amethyst, a gem who was raised in part within human culture. Everything points to Lapis having some experience with humans. Experience that could fit within the short period of time within her backstory that she glossed over. Obviously, the scenario that I presented back in the Lapis conspiracy video for Lapis's backstory was blatantly wrong. But I've come up with a new scenario that explains all of this stuff and makes a lot more sense. In fact, this is one of those things that I honestly wouldn't be surprised to see revealed in a new episode tomorrow. It just fits that well. What if, during her short time on Earth before all-out war broke out, Lapis encountered humans? Much more primitive humans than the modern humans that she would be able to interact with in the show today, but still fundamentally the same. What if she observed those humans and came to like observing them? What if she observed those humans for a while and started to find them amusing? She didn't really ever come to care for them, but she found enjoyment in their presence. This would explain how she knows about human bodily functions, and while it doesn't explain her knowledge of modern humans, if she did enjoy observing humans, then who's to say that isn't something that she started doing again today? She can fly really fast. It's not like she couldn't run off and watch humans for a while every once in a while without people noticing. But all of this is just supposition so far, and I said that this was on par with the ideas of mine that I'm most sure of. So why am I so sure? Well, this brings us back around to what I said about Lapis having a yet untold history with Rose. Put simply, there's another aspect of Lapis's characterization that doesn't make sense based on what we know, and that's just how much blame she placed on the crystal gems for her imprisonment. Now, it's not difficult to work out how she knew the term crystal gem upon being removed from the mirror. She'd been mistaken for a crystal gem by her own people and questioned for 1,000 years about the crystal gems. There's no way she didn't know the term. But that doesn't explain why Lapis expected the crystal gems to know who she was, to know that she was conscious in the mirror. And it doesn't explain why she thought that they had imprisoned her on purpose rather than accidentally. The shock that the crystal gems displayed when they found out that the gem inside the mirror was conscious tells us that using conscious gems to power objects is the exception, not the rule. So it would make sense for Lapis to place blame for her imprisonment on the crystal gems, if she thought that they knew that she was conscious. I mean, yes, they were partially responsible for her being put in the mirror in the first place, but it was literally her own people who put her there, not the crystal gems, and yet her first instinct when she got out of the mirror was to go back to her people. But probably most glaringly, it doesn't explain why Lapis said to Steven that she never believed in the Earth, as if there was a time when someone suggested that she should. What if, while observing humans for her own amusement, Lapis encountered a lone gem? One who, we learned in a recent episode, spent a lot of time on her own, furthering activities that she never bothered to tell her friends about. One who also liked humans. What if Lapis encountered Rose Quartz, who mistook Lapis's amusement with humans for genuine appreciation? What if Rose, knowing that war was imminent, tried to recruit Lapis and bring her into the growing ranks of the crystal gems? What if Lapis turned Rose down, not believing that the Earth was worth opposing the might of Homeworld? And what if Lapis assumed that Rose told the other crystal gems about her after their meeting? I reiterate again that Lapis was mistaken for a crystal gem after she was found poofed on the battlefield. Maybe she was mistaken for a crystal gem because she'd been seen with Rose. And you can't argue that she wouldn't recognize Pearl as a crystal gem when Pearl found her, because I reiterate again, she was questioned about the crystal gems for 1,000 years, and Pearl was a very prominent crystal gem. Lapis would have known about her. If she assumed that Rose told the others about her, then when Pearl found her and didn't let her out, her first conclusion would have been that Pearl was keeping her imprisoned as punishment for refusing to side with the rebels. This explains everything that doesn't make sense in regard to Lapis's characterization. It even explains why Lapis has never commented on Rose, despite the fact that, having been questioned about the crystal gems for 1,000 years, she must have at least known of Rose. She must have, and yet she's never even offered up an opinion on Rose, because doing so would reveal her history with Rose, that being that Rose offered Lapis the chance to become a crystal gem, and that Lapis turned her down, and that backstory is being saved for a later reveal. Lapis and Rose are both characters who we still don't know nearly as much about as we could, and while it's not compulsory that learning about one would reveal something about the other, in this case I really do think that it will. And to think I was sparked to return to this subject by a few offhand remarks in one 22-minute episode. Sometimes I even impress myself. That said, guys, what do you think about this theory? Do these ideas seem to reflect the truth? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. Either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later. Hey guys, I'm really looking forward to getting some constructive feedback about this video. I literally had the idea for this one like 4 days ago and put aside all the work I'd done on the theory that was supposed to be up today and rushed to get this one out. So obviously I'm very curious to know what you guys think. Of course, if you did enjoy the video, please leave a like, favorite the video, or subscribe if you haven't yet. And if you know of anybody else who might enjoy this video, of course, please share it with them. Quick reminder that I am going to be taking the last 2 weeks of December off, in part to get some new stuff for the channel going, and in part just to chill for the holiday season. I do want to let you guys know, though, there's something really interesting does happen during those 2 weeks. Of course, I will make a video on it. I'm not going to leave you guys hanging. But for the most part, you're not really going to hear much from me, and I just wanted to remind you guys why. That said, as per usual, thank you for watching.